Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rage, and we are back today to talk about the only 10 teams that you should be building in Marvel Strike Force right now, so that way you can get to the end game content as quickly as possible, as well as, in addition to that, building a strong foundational roster that's going to get you set up in terms of all the game modes, value, and as well how you can best prepare and manage your resources. So it helps to hone in on 10 teams, and we like to revisit this every single month because it's very rare that we get a huge turnover in teams. Although Marvel Strike Force does do a good job of releasing a new team every single month, not every team released makes it to this list, and typically there's only one or two changes every month as well. So hopefully this helps give you an overview, especially for those of you that are early in the Marvel Strike Force journey, mid-game transitioning to end game, or even starting that end game journey of being highly engaged and obviously getting those mythic unlock characters. We're going to dive into that, guys. So first and foremost, a little bit of context or how this list was overall built, and based on my past videos as well, is that the two most important game modes are in fact Alliance Raids and as well as the Arena meta. Reason being is because Alliance Raids generates Gear Tier 20 pieces that you can actually utilize every single day, and Gear Tier 20 allows your characters to be brought up to the highest level that's possible right now in Marvel Strike Force. The reason we want to focus on Arena meta is also because this is the only way that you can generate additional power cores that's pretty generous in my honest opinion, right? Even if you're staying in the top 20, you're getting 450 per day, top 50, 400, top 100, 300. So this adds up over time, it compounds, and that's what it's all about. Power cores are important because they're the flex resource of the game that allows you to have, additional store refreshes, extra campaign energy, extra attacks when you're going through raids. So it allows you to pivot where need be depending on what events Marvel Strike Force throws at us as well. So that's really where my basis comes from developing these teams. It's going to focus on obviously the raids and arena, and on top of that, then I take a look at the other aspects of the game where it's going to allow you to be able to dip in and start deep diving some of those late game stages like War, Cosmic Crucible, and ultimately the Dark Dimensions, which give you access to some of the most powerful characters in the game, and even including the sagas as well, like Professor Xavier himself. So let's get into it, guys. Context is the reason that we've built up this list here, and like I said, it doesn't typically change too much, but what I also like to point out in this list is the things to be watching for, especially some of these teams that potentially could be fading, which means they may be losing value over time now, likely to be replaced. I will also point that out. So I think that's a good time to pivot here real quickly to the Night Stalkers team being utilized for Mystic section of the raids right now. And the reason I point that out is because more in light of new information that circulated this week, we know that Heartless Strange and Elsa Bloodstone, they're both possibly, potentially, and very likely getting reworks. Now, it hasn't been confirmed yet on whether or not they're going to be replacing Night Stalkers as the Mystic Raid team, but if they are, that's why we need to point this out, right? Is that you may want to caution building up your Night Stalkers now, because I suspect, anyways, in the next week or so, we're going to get that confirmation, and if they are pronounced to be the next Mystic Raid team, you'll probably have to invest less in the Night Stalkers team. Would I still invest in Blade and Oath for, situations like Age of X where we require 5 city characters? Honestly, they're still a really good character in tandem. Even if you're not building up Night Stalkers, Blade and Oath, they can still have a lot of value in Dark Dimension, and they're a really powerful dynamic that you can use in other game modes, including War and Crucible. So I would still actually build up the two. I just wouldn't build up the team if we do see that this new potential Midnight Suns or Legion of Monsters is going to be the next Mystic Raid team. So just something to be on the lookout for there. We have Orcus now being officially replaced by Insidious 6, which includes reworks to Shocker and Vulture, as well as obviously right now what's happening is the Insidious 6 is currently getting released. So that's why we don't have them shown on screen here. But the reason I point this out is because I still think Orcus is still one of the better global villains team. If you want to bring them up into Age of X, there's still a bit of value there. But just know that they are replaced now officially by Insidious in the tech section of the raid. So you can utilize them up to a certain point, but it really ultimately makes sense. If you're newer to the game, transitioning from mid to end game, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense now to build up Orcus. If you already have Orcus built up, they're just going to provide dividends as long as they can. In the meantime, I highly recommend now focusing on Insidious 6. Again, they're not shown on screen here, guys, but that includes characters like Scorpion, Hobgoblin, and Superior Spider-Man expected in the coming week here. So just something to be on the lookout for there. For the mutant section, we now have Hellfire Club officially replacing Extreme, so there's really no other way to go about it. I highly recommend Hellfire Club. They're farmable in the Antimatter store, and especially big reworks to Madeline Pryor and Emma Frost being statistically relevant again. It just makes the most sense. They are the most recent raid team, so they're going to have the most value right now. They're going to stay along. They're going to be staying as long as basically until probably end of 2026, I would say. So some of these newer raid teams are the ones that I would focus on because you're going to get more value the sooner you bring them up and utilize them for obviously ongoing events and so forth. So that's the Hellfire Club. We got Thunderbolts here for Bio, being another recently announced team. You need them every single day. They're pretty decent in War and Crucible, depending on where you want to slot them as well. So, and some of those characters can be utilized as well in the legendary events. So, just value to be had. Vigilante, oh my goodness, easily the best raid team out of this entire mix. I still think that it's hard to challenge them right now, just given how meta they are. They're just so strong. They can take down some of the best War, some of the best Crucible defenses, and just the amount of value you get from Age of X and so forth. Build this team, guys. If there's anything to take away, Vigilantes is the best raid team right now in Marvel Strike Force. Focus on them. You're going to get a lot of value, and especially with them only being released a few months ago, we won't see them getting replaced until at least 2026. So that's great to see there. So that covers the main raids. Now we do have Spotlight, and I guess Annihilation does require some of these Uncanny Avengers. I believe that's the tag that they're utilizing in there. But yeah, this is a good mixture here, guys. They're decent in War and Crucible, and obviously when you bring in characters like Rachel Summers to replace some key members in Crucible, it adds a little bit more further value there. So highly recommend this. You need them as well in the Annihilation raid, so just build them up. And then we do have Alpha Flight, who's likely getting replaced, and that's why I'm very, very minimal and cautious on building them up, because they've been in the game for over a year and like 3 or 4 months now. So it's been quite some time, guys. So North Star is easily the best character of this mix, but I would caution you on building up the other characters unless you need them to obviously push through the nodes or sim some of the raid nodes and whatnot. So that's it for that. So those are the 7 interchanging raid teams that we see right now that can build a very, very strong foundation for you to progress through a lot of the content. Let's talk about the 3 remaining teams now, which I think is more situational, but can be dependent on what your game priorities are. So we have Astral here being the only Battle World team. I mean, they're really only here because when Battle World comes, they're an easy auto. The fact that Emma Frost X-Men variant is actually utilized in Age of X is amazing. I used Shadow King as well. Doctor Strange is a powerhouse now with the rework. So I mean, this is a really strong team overall. You can hit auto all the highest difficulty of Battle World. So that's why I have them built up. But they're also very formidable in War and Cosmic Crucible, dependent on the teams that you're up against. So they have really, really good value in the majority of the game modes. And you can bring in some of these key members as well into Dark Dimension. And like I said, Age of X. So highly recommend. Cabal, surprisingly still being on this list because they're required for a Legendary Trials event in Old Man Logan, being one of the best legendary characters in the game still. But also, they can be utilized in the Shadow King Trials as well, which ties into my Astral team being listed here too. So I think there's just awesome value. If you want to bring them into Age of X for Professor Xavier, I love the fact that they're a mix of tech, bio, and mutant. So it's a great beautiful blend there to allocate your resources. So yeah, just a little bit of value add there. You also need them for 2 legendary trials in terms of just providing value. So I think they're going to stay on the list, but they're probably going to be replaced in the coming month or 2 here on this top 10 list, just for myself, because of the fact that they are statistically crept, and statistically they are the weakest of all the characters here shown next to Alpha Flight. So just something to be on the lookout for there. And then lastly, I do have 2 teams that are kind of slotted in as a one here, depending on where you are in the game, right? So obviously, Fantastic Four MCU, they are the go-to arena team right now. They can challenge some of the best mythic characters in the game outside of Professor Xavier. So build them up. They're going to get you higher rankings to generate more power cores. I also have Annihilators listed here because I realized that folks may not have access to Fantastic Four. Maybe they can't farm the Antimatter store yet, as they're not fully farmable. So obviously, if you're going to build up the Annihilator route, the only 3 characters I would recommend is Thanos Endgame, Gladiator, and Gore to get you to get the job done. unleashed to accumulate. But otherwise, if you're able to get access to Fantastic Four, especially Franklin Richards, Reed Richards, and Sue Storm, highly recommend building them up. You can bring them into Age of X. They can be used potentially for Dark Dimension. They're powerhouses in War and Crucible. So obviously, it makes the most sense to skip Annihilators and to build up the Fantastic Four if you're able to. But having said that, if your only choice is Annihilators, they can still give you a bit of value. I just wouldn't overinvest in them because, like I said, they've been faded now that Fantastic Four is here. And although you get a little bit of value from Annihilators still in other game modes, it just doesn't really make sense to build a less relevant team and less meta than what we currently know as Fantastic Four. So there you guys have it. The only 10 teams right now that you should be focusing on, especially if you're new to the game, that's going to get you to the end game as quickly as possible, and that's also going to build a strong foundation to give you value across in all game modes. And we do this update every single month, guys. So do let me know if you feel like I missed a team, there's a special mention or anything like that, and we drop it down in the comments below. Thank you for your time as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.